Hi there, this is Richard Pearce from buildajoomlawebsite.com with a quick Joomla tip. Before I start this particular video, I want to point out that we're experimenting by recording the videos now at a higher resolution. This particular one was recorded at, I think it's 1920 by 1080, which means that they're best viewed at full screen. In your video player, whether you're watching this at YouTube or on our website or somewhere else, you should see down to the bottom right of the player a little icon that you can click on, which will allow you to view this at full screen, and that should look much better. This approach hopefully will work now that these days most people have got pretty reasonable internet connection speeds. But if you have any trouble, we'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave a comment below if this worked better for you or if in fact you had trouble. Now let's move on with the topic for today, which is the Joomla 2.5 sample content. If you installed your own Joomla website, you might remember this screen. Step 6 of the web installation process is where you need to enter some basic details about your site and optionally load some sample data into your site. Now in our free course, The Basics, I recommend that beginners do this because it includes a whole bunch of data which helps you to learn how to use Joomla. There are some downsides to this though, and I'm going to talk about those today. But what I wanted to point out is that as of a fairly early version of Joomla 2.5, some additional sample data sets have been included. So in addition to the traditional default sample data, there are two other options. Now if you'd like to see what these sites look like, you can do two things. You can either install 3 instances of Joomla, perhaps locally as I've done here, and have a look at them all. Or you can watch this video as I've done that hard work for you. And so in this video I am going to go through each of the 3 bits of the 3 sample data options so that you can more easily make a decision when you're installing your next Joomla site, whether it's for you or a client, which of those 3 versions you should use. The first version, of course, is the default sample data, and you're no doubt already pretty familiar with this. This is great for learning Joomla, but it does contain an awful lot of data. There's articles, different categories, lots of different categories. There's even images and components that are all preset to give you a good overview of how to use the various features of Joomla. It is a great way to learn, but if you're building your own website on top of this sample data, it can be a pain once you're ready to go live because you need to delete all that sample data. And it's not necessarily obvious how to do this. So as a beginner, like I say, it's a good way of learning, but you might be better off installing either no sample data or one of the other 2 options that I'm going to go through now. The first optional sample data set is Brochure sample data. If you choose to install this option, your website will end up looking like this. Kind of similar to the first one, but there's a couple of obvious omissions. The logo's not there, does look a little bit more plain, but this is a good option if you want a nice fast setup, and it happens to be using, I'll just go into Administrator now, happens to be using the Bees 5 template, as you can see here. And it's headed Your Basic Template. One of the big differences is that the logo image is not there, and instead this text is being used, which of course you can change. Unlike the default sample content, there are far fewer articles. There's just one category plus an uncategorized category, which technically means 2 categories, I guess. There's a handful of articles here, so much easier to delete later on if you need to do that. Note there are no featured articles. Instead, the way this home article is displayed is by using a menu item, which you're familiar with, no doubt, the article's single article. Here are the other menu options. And you'll note that there are a couple of front-end editing options here for creating an article. Now let's have a look at the modules that are installed. You'll see there's a normal menu module here in the left column, and there's a couple of other ones. There's a login form down the bottom left, and there's a side module. The side module is just a custom HTML module. You can see them, of course, under Extensions, Module Manager. And here you'll also find that there's a header image that's also just custom HTML. And if you have a look at these instructions here, you'll see that you can just insert an image if you know how to do that. The modules are assigned to all pages with one exception. There is an other news module, which is just the old articles news flash option, and that appears on just the news page. You want to have a look at our modules lesson if you're not familiar with modules, as it talks about how to assign modules to all pages or just certain pages. In this case, as I say, the news one is just assigned to the news page. So that's a quick overview of the brochure sample data option. The final sample data option is blog sample data. And this one's somewhat more exciting because it overcomes, well, some of the criticism that Joomla receives about not being a terribly friendly blog platform. When you install this sample data, your site will end up looking like this. So the first obvious thing is that this looks somewhat similar to the standard sample data website, but on closer inspection you'll see that there are some significant changes. This has been set up to work more like a traditional blog platform. There are 3 articles on the home page, one of which takes advantage of the read more break. And if you go to administrator, you'll see that once again there's one category called blog plus the uncategorized category, which is actually used. There are a few articles. The blog type articles are in the blog category. And there's an about and a single article here that have just been stored under uncategorized. Once again, there are no featured articles. The home page is not a featured articles page, it's a category blog page. Kind of makes sense for a blog site. And there's a second link to just a single article. Now if you take a look at the modules, this is where it starts to make a bit more sense. There is an older posts module, and that one I'll show you in Module Manager is older posts. Here we are, is an articles category. If you're not familiar with this module, this is a core Joomla module, and what this can do is show all of the items under a particular category, and this one's already been filtered so that just the blog articles are displayed. So that's what happens here under older posts. There's also a blog roll module, and that just takes advantage of the core Joomla web links component. Probably not that popular a component, but kind of helpful on a blog. That's the web links there, and if we have a look at links, you can see the 2 there correspond to the 2 on the front end here. And there's also a most read posts module. Again, kind of nice. And that's also here, most read content. This is a module that's been around with Joomla for a long time. And once again, you can set this up so that it only shows the most read posts from a particular category, which in this case is the blog category. One other thing I'll point out with this third option is that there is an author login. And this has been set up so that anyone who is assigned to either the manager or author or super user group can log into the front end and edit content. I'll just go ahead and log in with the super user details for the moment. And note that when I do that, an additional menu appears at the top, allowing this user to do additional things such as create a blog post right here from the front end. No need to go into administrator. You can add to the blog roll, so that's allowing you to edit the web links component, or in this case add to the web links component. The next one is to edit. There's a single article on this site called working on your site. That's been set up also to be able to be edited from here. Or access the page, and then you could click the edit article icon to in fact edit it. There's a shortcut to administrator and a logout option as well. Just to prove my point, Here in Administrator, you can see here are the access levels. And there's one that's been created called Special. Joomla 1.5 users would be familiar with that. And so these are the groups that have access to this level: author, manager, super users. And you'll see that in the menu items, say the author menu for example, most of these have been set to the special level. And so there's a quick overview of the blog sample data option. So there's a quick overview of the difference between the three types of sample data now available in Joomla 2.5. Once again, if you need to learn how to get to this stage, I recommend that you watch our free introductory course, The Basics, as I do install the default sample data in that. But when it comes to your turn, you might prefer to choose one of the other two options. For more Joomla tips just like this one, head over to www.buildajoomlawebsite.com.